What is up, everybody? Welcome back to League on Lock. My name is Eric, and it's no secret that Fnatic just pumps out talented mid laners. Doesn't matter what era the organization's been around, and with Nemesis coming in 2019, it sets a new era of the black and gold, and that means we have to go back in time, and actually look and see who is the best mid laner in the history of Fnatic, because there's been some pretty darn good ones. And before we actually say who the best is, we gotta go back and recap who they actually were, starting way back in Season 1 with Xuxe, and I don't know if there's any way you can make an argument that he's been the best mid laner in the history of Fnatic, solely because when he was playing, the games weren't even in HD, and these were the cosplays. Cosplays were not as advanced. He just undid his Fnatic shirt and grabbed a water cooler to cosplay as Gragas, but he was the first one to bring out the AP Gragas and the AP Alistar. There's no doubt he's a pioneer of the early League of Legends competitive scene, but the game was just completely different then. He wasn't playing against Koreans, and then when he left Fnatic, he couldn't really keep up with the rest of the competitive scene. On Dragonborns, they were one of the worst LCS teams, but he was the captain of Fnatic, and he does have a Gragas skin to his name after that Season 1 World Championship. So we cannot forget Xuxe. Can't forget sushi either, one of the greatest foods. But Xuxe, he's in the Fnatic Hall of Fame, and deservedly so. Again, one of the pioneers early on in the mid lane for playing some wacky off-meta stuff, playing anything AP that you would not expect. But anyone who's arguing that he's the best player, the best mid laner that Fnatic has ever seen, is probably slightly insane. And then, of course, the second era of mid laners for Fnatic, he was actually on the squad with Xuxe early on, playing in that top lane, is Xpeke, one of the most recognizable figures in competitive League of Legends. The Kassadin backdoor, so many iconic moments on that Fnatic squad, and then the fact that he went to Origin as well and still performed fantastically to basically make Fnatic black as well with some different players. But he's probably the most recognizable and the longest tenured mid laner on Fnatic. So just in terms of longevity and success, what he was able to do with this squad, to me, Xpeke is still the greatest mid laner in the history of Fnatic. I mean, he did it domestically, they dominated with him on that roster, and obviously internationally, he went toe-to-toe with some of the best players at that time in that era of League of Legends. So for me personally, just because of how long he was with Fnatic and what he was able to do, the accolades, and how he was the captain of that squad, basically ushering in that new era alongside Cyanide, coming over from the early Season 1, Season 2 of Fnatic to that reckless Yellow Star Soaz era. Xpeke is the captain and just the face of Fnatic even to this day. But then we jump ahead to his replacement in Febiven, and if we're talking about pure peak performance, even though he wasn't there as long as Xpeke, I think peak and competing against the rest of the world, Febiven is probably the highest peak of any mid laner that Fnatic has ever seen. 2015, going toe-to-toe against the likes of Faker and solo killing him multiple times at MSI. That almost broke Twitch. That almost broke the entire Western scene to see a Western player destroying Faker in a very favorable matchup for the Zed when he was a completely busted champion, but we'll pretend that's not the main case here. But also at that Worlds run for Fnatic where they got the semifinals, someone like Reckless has said he underperformed at that event, and Huni at times underperformed at that event, but Febiven was an absolute madman in the majority of those games and going up against, again, world-class competition. So it was back-to-back international events at MSI and Worlds that Febiven showed up in the biggest way possible for Fnatic. So pure peak performance, and at the absolute height of their game, I think Febiven reached the highest point out of any Fnatic mid laner that we've seen. That's including Xpeke during his Worlds buffs and including the next man on this list, who is Caps. But Febiven, those 2015 runs were absolutely incredible. So peak performance goes to Febvin, longevity obviously goes to Xpeke, and just the overall face of that organization I give to Xpeke. The most recent mid laner we've seen is, of course, Pat Caps, or Claps, who reached his peak right before he decided to leave the team and head over to G2. When he first came on to Fnatic, there was a lot of hype around him as a rookie. Baby Faker was the nickname, and it took him a little while. 2016, you saw moments of it, or 2017 as well. You saw moments of the potential there, the mechanics that this guy could have, but there was so many questionable plays of him getting caught out or not respecting opposing junglers and dying for no reason. And then 2018, it really all came together, specifically in that summer split when Reckless was taking a break and the meta was absolutely insane. And that was the point where he could play pretty much any champion he wanted. Wukong, Vayne mid, it didn't matter. At Worlds, maybe you say he didn't quite perform to the level that people were expecting for him because the expectations he had set for himself were absolutely insane. But at MSI, he was going toe-to-toe with the likes of BDD and Zhao Hu and showing that he can not only keep up with them, but outperform them at times. So Caps goes right behind Febvin in terms of reaching their peak potential well on Fnatic. But if you're talking about overall greatest mid laners, I still think you have to go the likes of Xpeke just because he kind of set the foundation and set up Fnatic to be what would become the greatest European organization of all time. It was Xpeke who was there from season 1, and still during season 3 and 4, he was going up against some of the best mid laners on the planet and able to compete against them and at times even outperform them. And there's just so many iconic moments that he's contributed to Fnatic. And well, you could say that Febvin and Caps both reached higher peaks individually as mid laners. I think that's safe to say for both of them over Xpeke, but what he did overall with that org puts him just a bit ahead for me as the greatest mid laner in the history of Fnatic. But there's so many different variables you can come in. If you're just saying best mechanical player, Xpeke falls behind those two players. So there's so many different variables, but for me, Xpeke is still the face of Fnatic. And that's all the time today for League Unlocked. My name's Eric Hummel. Thank you guys so much for watching as always, and we will see you on the next one.